I didn't mean to hit that button. I
All right.
I wanted to hit another button.
A little too excited, George.
Let me get this. Let me get this out of here as soon as I find it. Great start, Espenlaub. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm going to dock your pay.
Yeah, dock me up again. Man, I'm going to owe everybody. Anyhow, hey, there's a comment from Paul Fickelstein, if I said that right. He said he can't wait. Cool. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me both of your ears, whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world. We thank you one more time for tuning in to the show tonight. And we got a good one. And we got a good guy to do this thing with. And we appreciate him taking the time to come on and be with us. Ed, I'm going to let you kick this off. But before I do, here's what I want you to do. Come in, leave your comments, ask questions, and Keith is going to be giving away his book. And this is the book that he's going to be giving away. A Common Sense Constitutional Conservative in Woke America. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'll get it. I'll get it right. I promise.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. And this is what you got to do. Just give me a second before you do it, because I'm going to get this right tonight. And we're good to go. This is what I want you to do. Type in the comments, #book. That's #book. And periodically, as we do our show tonight, we'll pop this up. Top. Type #book to be eligible for the drawing. And then whoever wins this thing, we'll give you the email address that you can send your address to, and Keith can get it to you. There's Dax. He's up there in Canada. Way to go, Dax. #book. Good to see you, buddy. Come on in and get them questions out. Ed, kick this thing off.
All right. Well, first off, just to be clear, how do you pronounce your name?
Feit.
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 As if phonetically spelled it Fight.
Correct.
Perfect. That's what I'm talking about. You can't beat that.
Everybody
right.
likes the name.
I guarantee you. I mean, that's like George. George's nickname was Mushroom because we could not expect. His parents said, "Listen, he's a fun guy." But anyway, that's a George joke there. But so I just look at going through looking at some of the research on you, and so one you're running for office out of Tallahassee, am I correct?
I'm running to go to Tallahassee. I'm actually running out of Boynton Beach and Delray Beach, South Florida.
South Florida. And is that, what is that? I'm thinking that's on the way to Miami.
Yeah, it is just south of West Palm Beach on the way down towards Miami.
Okay. Well, I'm a celebrity there because I'm being facetious. I lived in Florida in 97, and in 2000, I forget the actual year, but in Fort Lauderdale, I saved a boy's life at a pool at a Marriott hotel.
Okay, that's even closer than Miami.
Yeah, and of course the media totally flipped on me because they went from making me a hero to by the time they were done, the whole place hated me because they took me totally out of context. Actually, they put words in my mouth.
That's what they do.
That in mind, so just to start off, one thing I was listening to a podcast which you were on, and one of the bio statements was you had an award-winning dissertation. Can you talk about that briefly?
Sure. I had a great committee. I had professors that actually were very well known everywhere we went for conferences, and they were great guides. And my dissertation was on entrepreneurial orientation of school leaders and the effect it has on school performance. And one of the interesting things was we found out that principals with or who perceived that they had greater autonomy, their schools performed better than schools where the principals felt they didn't have the autonomy. So that's why one of the things in my education plan is to decentralize education authority. Get it out of the district office and to the principals who know the students, who know the local, community, and give them more authority. And that came from my dissertation. So it was a great honor. And my mentor, God rest his soul, unfortunately, he passed away the year after, just after he learned that I had won the award, and he passed away. But he was an unbelievable mentor in my life, and still to this day, every time I do something, I think about what he would say or the advice he'd give.
Okay, George, give me a little latitude here because I got a few. Okay, so hitting back on that, obviously you're in the education business, and so one thing we better tell you, since it is what is this, a Teacher Appreciation Week, we appreciate what you're doing. Obviously, right now I know you were at Florida. What was it? Florida Atlantic University. You were there, right?
I was at their lab school, yeah. And for the last 2 years, I've been at the Weiss School in Palm Beach Gardens.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I didn't know how to pronounce it. Okay, so the next thing I was going to go in, obviously education. There's nothing more important than education. As you see, I used to teach in Florida. I wrote a few books. One of my books was called The Last Terrorists. And what it has to do with is it kind of goes into one of your, the book topic that you have that you have some expertise in, which is about liberal socialism. And so obviously most of the schools, including now, it's creeping into the Christian schools, starting to creep into there a little bit by little bit, because it seems to the teaching profession, as you know, tends to attract people from the left persuasion. And so getting at that, what do you think, the beginning of this, you could, it depends on where you market the Western civilization. Obviously there's been an attempt to end it for a long time. I mean, a lot of colleges don't even require it anymore. There's some states that are minimizing American history, let alone Western civilization. And so your book was about liberal socialism. This is a huge topic. You're running for office. You're an expert in this. Tell us a little bit about this and how this is dangerous for our country, this liberal socialism.
Well, we have a movement in this country that's anti-American. And what they're trying to do is bring down our republic from within. And the things we're seeing, a lot of people like to talk about the incompetence of the Biden administration. And yeah, in a lot of ways they are incompetent, but so many of these things they're doing are by plan. The border is open by plan. It's not an accident. They know exactly what they're doing. They want an open border. They want the illegal immigration. They want illegals to be able to vote and vote without identification, because they figure those are going to be Democrat votes. Their plan is to create a one nation party, a one party rule, and to completely get rid of the Republican Party so they can install their socialist agenda. They know right now that the American people have absolutely no desire for socialism. As Winston Churchill said, that, capitalism, the vice of capitalism is unequal sharing of, prosperity, of blessings.
So what you're saying, I've been saying for years. So why is this, why can you say this as a matter of fact, and this isn't some conspiracy theory or fake news that you're giving out here?
Well, because the plain flat fact of the matter is that we have allowed the left over the last couple of decades to infringe on our rights, to kind of poke their head in, and we've given them an inch, and then they've taken a foot, and then we've given them that foot, and then they've taken a yard, and it keeps getting more and more. So we've emboldened them to the point where now they're just flat out in the open. Everything used to be done underhandedly. Everything used to be done. The left, they are masters of distortion and illusion, and they're masters of making it seem like their policies are compassionate about the American people. But anybody who pays attention knows that they're about control.
Okay, so George, allow me a little latitude here, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so let me give you a softball, then I'll kind of lead my way up.
Okay.
I see that you are the director of athletics.
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize for interrupting you. It's just that we have an hour and it goes by real quick by the time we're done.
No problem. I know I can talk a lot. So.
No, you're fine. You did a great job. You're thorough. That you were director of athletics. What do you think about gender-based sports?
Well, it's it's a joke that they are allowing biological males to compete in female sports. The women have had to work so hard to get to a point where they're on the level they're on now. You look at women's basketball and how popular it's become from where it started. And it's been all about women's rights and equality and which is important, and it should have been. And now all of a sudden for this transgender movement, now the women are just getting pushed aside. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if women lose scholarship opportunities or they lose opportunities to compete in the Olympics because a biological male who has a natural advantage is competing in the sport. If the left wants transgender, are they transgender male or female? Transgender female, which are biological males that are female, right? If they want them to compete, have a separate transgender division, but leave women's sports alone. And the same goes for bathrooms and locker rooms. And, it creates an uncomfortable situation for a lot of people when this big hulking male walks into a female locker room. It's infringing on their rights of life, liberty, and happiness. They can't be happy if they're not comfortable. And it's absolutely absurd that we have to cater to a very small population against the rights and wills and wishes of the majority.
Okay, that was a little bit softball. I'm going to go a little bit deeper now. So the Federal Reserve obviously just said it's going to start making some rate hikes, and they're going to do them really quickly. And CNN's guys are saying this is going to lead to a recession. What's your take on that? Is it a good move? Will it do any good? And do you believe in the Federal Reserve?
It's hard to believe in the Federal Reserve, and I'm not an economist. I'm not an expert in this area, but from what I've read, these quick rate hikes are not going to be good. Obviously they're doing it to try to deal with the inflation, which is a problem of spending. Spending money we don't have and printing money we don't have, which the left likes to do. I'm not exactly sure if what the Fed is doing is the answer, but from what I've read, there are a lot of economists who are saying it is going to speed us up into a recession, which most of them are predicting right now within the next 2 years.
Okay. So I saw some things. I'm looking at some quotes you have, and so one of the things you had made a comment about that might put a red flag up for some people. I'm not saying for me, but I'm just saying for some people. Was you put quote unquote, you said the Democrats aren't really the JFK and Clinton party. I'm presuming you mean Bill Clinton first off.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me, why include Bill Clinton in that?
Well, because if we look back at the Democrat Party, obviously it was the party of Roosevelt, and then Kennedy came along, and Kennedy was the opposite. Kennedy was more of a supply sider, cutting taxes across the board like Reagan did, and he led the Democrats, and he became their face, especially after the assassination. He was the face until really the 90s. And the reason I put Clinton in there is because he's the reason the Democrats came out of the wilderness. It was very easy to label them liberals. And back then, if you labeled them a liberal, that's like labeling them a socialist today. And people didn't want a tax and spend liberal, a soft on crime liberal, a anti-military liberal. And when Clinton came in, he changed that. His new Democrats, whether you think he governed like that or not, he ran a very effective campaign that he was in the middle.
And he had a balanced budget.
The era of big government is over. He worked with Newt Gingrich, balanced the budget 4 years in a row. We had budget surpluses, welfare reform. So he completely changed. He brought the Democrat Party, like Reagan did for the Republicans in 1980. Clinton did that, in my opinion, for the Democrats in 1992. And obviously now when you talk about supply side JFK and you talk about new Democrat Bill Clinton, and you look at what they have now, they are much, much more leaning heavily on Marx and Mao than they are Kennedy and Clinton. Even Roosevelt. I think Roosevelt is probably a little too conservative for the bunch today.
I wouldn't doubt it. So just one of the people's questions out here is, why are, in a succinct way, why are you running for office?
Well, I'm running for office because, and one of my books is called The Plague of Liberal Socialism. And I see it as a plague. And unfortunately, we have a political system. It's a horrible political system. It's, it's who has the money. It's who's willing to get the nastiest, who's willing to lie the most. Yep. And we have a lot of good people that aren't getting involved. We don't have the citizen legislature that the founding fathers wanted. We have people who are going to Washington and going into government office in order to enrich themselves. And when I look at what's going on, I have a 12-year-old son. And the short, simple answer is there's no way in hell I'm going to let him be indoctrinated into critical race theory, into anti-American 1619 Project nonsense. And I'm not going to have a teacher telling him that he can decide whether he wants to be a boy or a girl, depending on what day it is, or talk to him about, things that are inappropriate and things that should be left for a parent while he's in elementary school.
All right. So last one for me, George. I got one more for you.
So I've had enough of it. And I say, you know what? I'm a private person. I don't like the attention. I'd much rather be at home enjoying time with my son and my pets. But unfortunately, when I look at it, it's either my happiness and my tranquility now or my son's future and his ability to chase the American dream, because that's dying right now.
Amen. So last one for me until George gets some in here. Trump. Obviously, if you're a Republican, you almost have to say you like Trump. So what is it about Trump that you like, and is there anything that you wish were different about Trump?
Well, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but Donald Trump is a human being, so obviously the only one we've ever had who's perfect is Jesus Christ. So Trump's not perfect. I will tell you some of the things I loved about him. Number one, he said what he thought. He wasn't politically correct. He didn't care what people thought. And that is a huge draw. I love that he, promises made, promises kept. He ran on something, and when he got to office, he did it. If he didn't do it, he tried to do it. And he had a lot of resistance, very unusual, that his own leadership within his party stood in his way a lot. And he had a lot of Republicans that kept him from pushing his agenda completely through. Mm-hmm. So for what he accomplished, historic lows in unemployment for all demographics, the peace accords in the Middle East, North Korea, Russia, China, all of them held at bay. I mean, it was quiet for a while because of his policies. I thought he was a tremendous president. And I thought, unfortunately, a lot of times he would do something good and he wouldn't get the credit for it because, well, number one, obviously we know the media was against him. But number two, he did a lot of it to himself with some tweeting and things like that, whereas he should have just let his policy speak for itself. He didn't have to get involved with every single person who disagreed with him, right. But
that's pretty fair. That's very fair.
If you give me a choice, a good policy and mean tweets, or a polite tweeter and an absolute disaster for this country, I'll take the mean tweeter any day.
Yeah. Let me throw this in about this transgender thing. By looking at this mug, you can tell it's old. But anyhow, I'm from the old school. Now, this isn't popular. If it makes you mad, sorry about that. But listen, this transgender thing, you can cut things off and you can add things to. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, your DNA won't change. Cut them off, add them to, give yourself another name. But a male is a male, a female is a female. End of story. Now, moving on. Okay.
Can I say something on that, George, for a sec?
Yes,
Just
sir.
1 sec. You know, I agree. There's two genders. There's male and female. But I also agree. I'm a conservative, and when I say I'm a conservative, I think there's a lot of hypocritical conservatives who care too much to get into other people's lives, and they want the government to stay out of people's economic lives, but to jump into their private lives. You know, in terms of marriage equality, I don't care who gets married to who. It doesn't affect me at all. You know, so when it comes to transgender people, if there's somebody who's a male and feels more comfortable as a female, you know, I want them to go ahead, be happy. Just don't force the rest of us into situations that make us uncomfortable because you feel differently than the rest of us do. So I've had students in my school the last few years, some transgender students, girls that feel like they're boys, and so they want to be referred to as he, and they take boys' names, and if they want to live life as a boy, I have no problem with that. They were great kids, you know. I really they were good kids, and I don't want them not to have the same equal rights as everybody else. But I don't think anybody deserves special rights, and we certainly shouldn't be changing science to accommodate a small minority of people.
Absolutely right. Now, tell me this. You're running on the Republican side for a seat in the House in Florida. You'll have no primary, right?
Correct. I am the Republican candidate.
And you'll go straight to the general.
Yes.
So you can work from now until the general election, which makes it great. Who is the incumbent, and how far left is this person, and how long have they been the incumbent?
Great question. The incumbent is Joe Casello, obviously a Democrat. He's running for his third term. The first time he ran, there was no opposition, no Republican opponent. And he ran in the last election in 20, and he won by 19 points. Obviously, they've redistricted a little bit. It's still a heavily Democratic district, but I think a common sense message of, parental rights and education, not indoctrination, economic policies that are going to help Floridians prosper instead of suffer under inflation, fighting against unconstitutional mandates and closing our borders and securing our borders and considering the needs of American citizens first. I think there's a lot of traditional Democrats or moderate Democrats and a whole lot of independents that are tired of this nonsense. So this is I believe, as democratic of a district as it is, it's winnable. And Joe, in terms of how left he is, he voted against the Parental Rights and Education Act, which is, they say the Don't Say Gay bill, which is an absolute joke because it mentions nothing about that. And that's just typical leftist, confuse the voters, get the voters angry. That's that distortion that I talked about earlier. But he voted against that. He voted against expanding school choice. And I hope I get to talk about my education ideas later. He voted against protecting police. He voted against banning sanctuary cities. He voted against parental notification for minor abortions. So when you look at his voting record, I don't know Joe Casello personally. I'm sure he's a good guy, and I'm sure he's doing things for the right reason, and I'm sure he's voting the way he is because he thinks it's best. But I just disagree with him. We have two different philosophies. He's a big government Democrat, and I'm a limited government conservative Republican who believes more in individual liberty and self-determination. So I have nothing bad to say personally about Joe, and you won't hear me say anything personally about him or his family. I think that's disgusting. We should talk about the issues. But on the issues, I just think he's flat out wrong, and he's not good for the people of District 90.
Two things. You said that you would talk about the issues. If he comes after you with character assassination, the slimy, nasty kind of stuff that is typical, instead of facing issue for issue, are you willing to stand up to that stuff?
We will be prepared for anything. We won't get bullied. I think that's one of the big problems is that we allow the left to bully us. We say something they don't like, they call us racist, and we cower because we don't want to be labeled a racist. That's a bunch of crap, and I'm not going to back down. And I'm going to make sure, however, we're not going to let him off the hook. If he wants to not talk about issues because he knows he can't win on the issues, we're going to make sure that no matter what we do, we're continuing to get the issues in. So we will defend. I will defend myself, no doubt. I will defend my positions. And God forbid, God help him if he comes after my family. Then it's all gloves off. But we'll be prepared for anything. But we're going to try to keep this an issue-oriented campaign because that's, frankly, our best path to win.
That's right. Is there a chance, and I know we're quite a ways out yet, but is there a chance that you'll be able to debate him?
I hope so. I told my campaign manager, I said, I want to debate him every week in every precinct in the district. And if you want to debate more than once a week, I'll debate him every day. The more we can talk about the issues, I've got nothing to hide. And I think, obviously he's an incumbent, and incumbents they like to run and hide. They don't want to defend their record. And quite frankly, Joe's record is indefensible. So it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to dodge us, but we're going to try to get as many debates as possible. And if I have to go to his events and talk to people at his events, coming out of his events, then we're going to do that. But people are going to hear the difference between us. And we're going to let people decide on the direction they think. Do they want the Ron DeSantis keep Florida free direction, or do they want the big government mandates, no liberty, no freedom, government control path? So we're going to give them that choice, and we're going to make sure they know the difference.
Now, you have the backing of the GOP, the head honchos there in Florida. I won't ask you that question. Never mind. What about your thoughts on the rhinos? And I'm sure you've got some there in Florida, as well as we have them in the Fed government. But what about the Republicans that have no spine, that roll over and put their paws up and say, I submit, and they just kind of merrily go along their way? What about that?
They are a bigger problem than the leftist Democrats.
Uh-huh.
They are the enablers. They are the ones who, just think about it. Especially you look in the U.S. Senate now, 50-50. The Democrats couldn't move any of their socialist agenda, any of their ridiculous, irresponsible deficit spending that has made inflation soar. They couldn't do that without people like Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski. And, I'm not the kind of person who thinks that a party should purge itself. I believe in Reagan's big tent party. But if you can't stand up for what you campaign on and what the voters think they're getting, then you don't have a right to represent them. And Mitt Romney claims to be a conservative. I haven't seen it. And one of the things is the 6 Republicans who voted to convict Trump in that second impeachment, that was unconstitutional. And each one of them should be impeached from their position because they unconstitutionally went after a private citizen at the point that they had that trial in the Senate. It was unconstitutional.
Right. Speaking of conservatism, opinion on Roe versus Wade.
Well, I guess that fits today, doesn't it? Well, listen, Roe v. Wade, and I'm not a legal scholar either, but I do follow history. And Roe v. Wade was one of the worst decisions in the history of our country. The way the court, and there were Republican nominees on that. It was a 7-2 decision. I have no idea how, but the thinking on that about the privacy of a woman and the 14th Amendment, there's nothing in the Constitution that guarantees a woman's right to an abortion. Life begins at conception, in my opinion.
Right.
And, even if you don't think it does, at some point you have to admit that there's life. I was talking to one of my friends, Peter Arianis, who's running for Congress in District 22 down here, and he pointed something out to me that, scientists believe that a single cell bacteria is life, but then a multicellular conceived unborn child is not. How does that work? We're giving more consideration to bacteria than to a human being. I do not understand how anybody can claim that the taking of an innocent life is a constitutional right. And a lot of the left, they'll go on about how it's settled, it's 50 years, it's been our history, it's Supreme Court precedent. Plessy v. Ferguson in the late 1800s, that was also precedent. And that was kept our kids segregated in schools for the next 60 years or whatever it was, until 54 with Brown versus the Board of Ed. So the left likes to have it both ways. Either we can challenge precedent and we can overturn precedent for the right judgment, or we can't. But Roe v. Wade, I think it's the right decision. Unfortunately, this leaked opinion was obviously a liberal conspiracy. They were all ready with their signs and their protests and their speeches. Pathetic Chuck Schumer making his speech. They are the biggest bunch of hypocrites. They are the most anti-American, anti-human being, anti-morality group of public servants I've ever seen. Actually, they're self-servants. But this was a plan. They want to rally their base because they know they're going to take a whooping at the polls because people just don't like their policies and what they're doing to the country. And Roe v. Wade should be overturned. And abortion is not in the Constitution. It should be a state power. And I believe it should be illegal, period. But
okay, so when somebody that's a Republican runs for office, inevitably they're called a racist or an Uncle Tom. Can you explain how you are not a racist? Or if you're a racist, just come out and say, because, you never know.
Well, it's real simple. A racist is someone who discriminates on a group of people because of their race, their skin color, because of their differences. That makes the left the racists because they divide the American people by skin color. They keep black people oppressed with their welfare programs and their government assistance. And they do that so they can maintain control. And luckily, I think that community is waking up lately to the fact that, the conservative agenda is going to empower them and they're going to prosper more under our agenda than the government control and dependency model of the left. But I don't, I know people say it all the time. I don't see skin color, but I believe what Martin Luther King said. Let's judge people by the content of their character. Because I'll tell you what, some of the best people I've ever met are black. Some of the smartest people are black. And some of the people I would lay down my life for are black. And some of the most hideous, disgusting, subhuman trash I've met have been white. So people can believe me or not believe me. I think if you look through my 25 years and how I've treated the black kids and the white kids that I've coached and taught, and you'll find out that I have no perception of color. It doesn't make a difference to me. I want to help everybody. The left, it's this zero-sum game. In order for black people to rise, we have to bring down white people. We have to help the victims by bringing down the oppressors. And it's not true. We can all prosper together. If you look at the Democratic administrations that have increased welfare programs, that's when minority poverty has been its highest. And when conservative administrations have cut welfare programs and empowered members of the black community, that's when black poverty dropped. So you tell me who the racists are.
All right, so
I'll say this real quick. And forgive an old guy for going back in time, but look, I spent 19 months in Vietnam as a combat Marine. We all bled red. I'm going to tell you something. We loved one another. We fought for one another. And men died for one another. End of story. Ed?
Wait a minute, George. You never said you loved me.
I've told you 100 times I love you. You hear, but you just don't listen.
Well, here's another question for you. So we've determined that you can that unless somebody is calling you a racist or whatever, you're not even considering their skin complexion or whatever fits fits the agenda. Somebody try to play that game. But what about taxes? Let's go to taxes. What do you think about flat tax, for example?
I am a big opponent of the progressive income tax. I don't believe in punishing wealth and punishing success. My dissertation was on entrepreneurial orientation. So I want people to take chances, take risks, be innovative, excuse me, and get rich, get filthy rich. That's the American dream is, everybody has the opportunity to succeed. And back in the day, it wasn't true, but we've worked hard to make sure that everybody can do that today. So I'm a big opponent of the progressive income tax. I'd like to see the 13th Amendment repealed. And I do support either a flat tax or a fair tax, a national sales tax. And I would have to talk to economists and see about which one is a more realistic situation or a more feasible program. But I don't believe we should be taking more of what people earn.
What about capital gains?
Well, everything, capital gain, you risk your money, you get your reward. Capital gain shouldn't be different than everybody else. Listen, I don't have investments. I'm a teacher. I'd love to be making more money and be able to do more things for my son. I do what I can, and he knows. You work hard and good things happen, and that's what we should be promoting. Not take chances, work hard, and good things happen. But you know what? We're going to punish you. And when I discuss it with the kids sometimes, because they'll bring it up, and I always keep politics out of the classroom. But when they say about this, it's not fair that this person has this much money and doesn't pay more taxes than they do. I ask them, well, you're an A student and Johnny over there is a C student. So why don't we take 10 points from you? You'll be a B and he'll be a B. And then it's fair. And we'll punish you. You worked harder for it and Johnny didn't, but we want everybody to have the same. So we'll take points from you. And of course they don't like that. And I don't think anybody, even those leftists who claim that they're all about equality and equity. And that's another thing, by the way, I just got to say it. They talk about equality, but what they really want is equity. Equity is equal outcomes, right? They don't want equal opportunity. They want equal outcomes. It doesn't matter what you do. They want everybody to have the same. Socialism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, that's what they want. So that's where I stand on taxes. If you're saying we're going to keep the progressive income tax, I say across the board tax cuts. We cut taxes and we cut spending. And the reason the debt went up under Reagan and Bush is because the Democrats who led the Congresses at that point never cut spending like they were supposed to. So cut taxes, cut spending, balance the budget.
A little bit earlier, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think you kind of mentioned something that had to do with reaching across the aisle. What gives you that ability to be able to go to both sides of the aisle and get something done?
Well, I think it all goes back, number one, to your attitude and your philosophy. And I'm from the school of Reagan. I'm a Reagan Republican. I've learned a lot from studying him over the years. And he always said he'd rather get 70% of what he wants than go off the cliff demanding 100%. And he said you can always go back and get more later. So we've completely left that middle ground where give and take, like on the border. Well, we want border security. You want this. Well, let's give and take a little bit and see what we can come up with. And if we can come up with something. Now, I don't believe in I will never compromise on my principles, but there's nothing wrong with making sure that everybody can feel like they got a little something if it's a policy that will help the American people. In my case, help the Floridian citizen. I have, as an educator, you know, been in the school system where I am a distinct minority in terms of my political beliefs. So I've had to, you know, go at it, and I've had to compromise, and I've had to work with people who don't agree with me. And I think I've become pretty good at it, building those relationships, building those bridges, and standing by my principles, but letting other people know that my mind is open, my heart is open, and what I want to do is what's best for the people I serve. It's not about an ideological or a political party agenda for me. It's people over party and country over ideology.
When you say it's people over party, but have we reached a point in our country, in the federal government, in the state government, even in county and local governments, have we reached the point that the party is more important to individuals that are in offices than the constituents, we the people? And if that's so, has it become that people are so hard-headed and they won't budge, even if it's good for the country, because their party says, no, we're going to dig our heels in and we're not going to go that route?
Well, yes, absolutely. We've reached that point. The Democrats are much better at it, at keeping their people in line. You always see them voting straight across party line. And of course, we have the rhinos that like to break with the conservative agenda. But we've reached that point, and George Washington warned us against political parties, and John Adams was against political parties. You know, the people who gave us the country we have, the country we love, were against political parties for exactly that reason, that regional issues, regional concerns, party concerns would become more important than national priorities. And yes, we are there. But there is one thing that's more important to our elected officials than party, and that's their own self-empowerment and self-enrichment.
Yeah.
And that's why we need term limits now more than ever. We need to turn these people over, get them out. We need to put citizens in there, let people take their turn representing their own communities, right? When's the last time that Mitch McConnell really lived in his community in Kentucky, where he was just a citizen of Kentucky? He's been a citizen of Washington for what, 40 years? Mm-hmm. You know, these people are so out of touch with the people they serve. And really, in my opinion, they care little to get in touch with them. So we need term limits, and we need as many people as possible who are going to, like I said, put people over party, ideology, and country over ideology. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. You know, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Once people get to Washington, you know, they seem to get, they seem to change. I guarantee that won't happen for me. I have no plans. This is not a career choice for me. It's a moment of conscience. You know, I'm going because I see the American dream for my son and future generations dying. And I'm going to do what I can, get as much as my plans through, push my policies through. And once I'm done with that, I'm coming home and making sure my son is having a good life. And that's it. So term limits, term limits, term limits.
When you run, or you are running, but if you should win and you end up going to the House, what are the numbers now in Florida in the House and Senate? You know, Republicans on one side, Democrats, so on. Do you know the exact numbers?
It's almost 2-1 in the House for Republicans. And I think that's one of the problems. I think people are complacent. They're really paying attention to the congressional races because everybody knows we need to take back the House and fire Nancy Pelosi, get Lois Frankel out of there in District 22. And they're really concerned with the school boards, which they should be. Extremely important this year. So a reminder to everybody down here in Florida, you know, August 23rd is a primary. but that's the actual general election for the school board. So everybody needs to get out there and vote for conservative school board members. And it seems like people are forgetting the middle ground, the state races. And I think that's a lot of complacency because we have a Republican legislator and a Republican governor, but it's not going to be that way forever. Right. And the more complacent we are, we're going to see Democrats take some seats here and there. And before you know it, we're going to be in a touch and go situation with losing that majority. So I think, until it's 100% conservative Republican in the House, I think, just as a basketball coach, we always played like we were losing. I think we need to go out and vote and campaign and volunteer for campaigns and donate to campaigns like we're the minority party and we're fighting to get back to the majority.
Fund or defund police? Thoughts?
More funding. My father is a NYPD homicide detective. My grandfather was an NYPD sergeant. I have cousins and uncles that have been involved in law enforcement. I back the blue. We bleed the blue. These people put their lives on the line to maintain order, and it's disgraceful the way they've been attacked. There is no, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care who disagrees with me, there is no systemic racism in our law enforcement institutions. Are there racist cops? Of course. There's also racist teachers, racist lawyers, racist politicians. Yeah. There's racists in every profession. But there's no systemic racism. We are not an inherently racist society. Okay, cops don't go out looking to see how many unarmed black kids they can kill today. It's absolutely absurd. And we need to fund them. We need to make sure they have the best equipment, the best training. And yeah, we might need to add some training in terms of implicit bias training or de-escalation training. Why not give them more tools in their tool belt to help when they deal with the community? But people have to understand a lot of the problems that we see between certain demographics and police officers, a lot of that is self-inflicted. A lot of that is the way people interact with our law enforcement officers, and I think a big part of that is we need to start getting minority kids and low-income kids into programs when they're very young with police officers, whether it's sports or some kind of Boy Scouts thing, anything where they grow up seeing cops as their friends and not the enemy, because that's the problem. They are being taught by generations before them who have had issues, some rightly so in the past. Obviously, we've had major issues with race relations in the past, and these young kids are being poisoned that the cops are the enemies. And so we need to work on improving those communities, keeping those families together, getting those kids involved with the police early on so that they see police are their friends and not their enemies. But I back the blue 100%. And this defund thing is a joke. Anybody who wants to defund the police should never be allowed in public office. It's absolutely absurd.
Cool. Ed, let's do this gizmo thing. I think I got it right this time.
I hope so.
We'll give you one more shot. If you want to be eligible for the drawing, just put in there #book. #book. And we're going to give you a couple seconds, then we're going to pop this thing up. I think Espenlaub got it right this time. He blew it up before, but nonetheless, we were successful. The people got their books. Anyhow. So we're going to pop this thing up, do this thing real quick. Time goes by when you're having fun, I'm telling you. All right, here we go. This is for one of Keith's books. Let me put it up here big so we can see it. Let me take this down over here. All right, here we go. We only got 4 entries. I got to put this up here. Okay.
Oh, got a couple more there, George. Oh, yeah.
Cool.
I think you got them.
Dun. Yeah, we got a lot in there. Hey, where am I at?
Looky there.
Man, oh man. And ladies and gentlemen, I promise that was not rigged. That was not rigged. I promise. I promise.
I think. Are you sure you're not one of the
George.
2,000 mules?
George, do it again. We'll give away another book.
Good idea.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can make this thing work. Now hold on here. Let me go back here. Okay, draw again. All right. There we go.
Now, if Nancy wins again, that might be something to think about.
Oh boy, it looks like it. Oh,
all right.
Looky there. Looky there.
All right, Ed, did you make that banner with that address up so they can send?
Yeah, let me pull that up. Let's see, banner. Let's see. How about right there?
All right, Mom, that's where you gotta send your address to. And Karen, congratulations. Send it to KGF at Feit2022.org. We'll let that up there so you can get it copied down and all that stuff. Congratulations, guys, and hey, thanks for all the participation. We really appreciate that. Wonderful, Keith. It's been fun.
It has.
I want to ask you this before I forget, because you see, after all these years, I've only got one half brain cell left. And when it fires, that one half brain cell, I amaze myself. But when it dims out, I'm a mess. So I got to ask you this before it dims out. I wish you all the luck, and I hope that you come back again before the general election.
Anytime.
All you've got to do is ring me up. You got my stuff. Just ring me up and say, Espenlaub, I want to come back. We'll bring you back, and we'll make it convenient for you when you want to come back. So you've got a great invitation. And I'll be disappointed. I know Ed will be disappointed if you don't come back.
I guarantee I'll be back.
The other thing I want to ask you is this. Perhaps when all this is over, because you're going to be so busy, I love history, and I know that there are millions of other people out there that are real history buffs. I want you to come back and let's talk about history.
Love it. I would absolutely love it.
All righty. Okay. So we got you down for 2 different more times or 3 times, as many times as you want to come back.
Sounds great.
Yeah, ring-a-ding, and we'll fit you in.
Perfect.
All right, Ed, take her away, buddy. We got about 5 minutes.
Okay, so well, you mean I can get another question in?
Sure.
Okay, because somebody had put one up here. They wanted to know what you thought about the Keystone pipeline and gas prices.
Well, the thing that amazed me is how the Biden administration came into office and took away technical difficulties.
I hate when that happens.
Wow. That thing just shot at me. Give me a second here.
Okay.
I'm back. That thing shot at me right at my kneecap. Whew. I've been sabotaged. What was the question again?
What do you thought about the Keystone pipeline situation and the high gas prices?
They undid everything Trump did that was successful. We were energy independent. Gas was just over $2 a gallon when Biden took office. Inflation was at 1.4%. And, they take away these policies because they're Trump policies and because they want to destroy our country. The Keystone pipeline obviously should be open. We should be drilling everywhere we can, as much as we can. And we shouldn't stop drilling until we're energy independent again. And then we should still keep drilling. There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be supplying our own energy and that we shouldn't be supplying energy to Europe so they can get off of Russia's energy. Mm-hmm. And we can hurt Vladimir Putin even more. They like to say that there's these 9,000 leases out there that are not being used. Well, not every lease is not every acre of land that's leased has oil. and they have put regulations on that make it very difficult for these oil companies to turn a profit. And I don't care what you say, you know, oil companies, like any other business, they want to make a profit. Right. And, you know, so this administration has made it as difficult as possible for our energy producers to produce energy. And to me, it's a dereliction of duty. It's emboldening our enemies. You know, he wants to get oil from Venezuela and Iran and enrich those people. And their methods of getting the fossil fuels out of the ground are a heck of a lot dirtier than ours. So they're hypocritical when they talk about concern for the environment, and that's why they don't want the drilling here, because they're going to get it from places that are doing a lot more damage to the environment. So, you know, drill, baby, drill. That's all I can say. Drill, baby, drill.
Could I jump in here real quick? Let me put this up here. Paul wrote, give me a sec. Oh, there. Okay. Paul put up there, good to see Peter. I'm going to.
Arianis. Peter
okay.
Arianis.
Yeah. Okay. And he's running in the 21st district. Listen, if you're still here, Peter, or Paul, you could give him the message, or Keith, you give him the message. He's got an invite to come on.
That's it, Peter. You're on the George Espenlaub show. We're gonna set it up for you.
Yeah. Bring him on. Give him my stuff. Call him. Tell him whatever. But make him get in touch with us, and we'll put him on. Right, Ed?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, George. You know, I've been down in South Florida now for too long, 30 years now. And by the way, just so you know, it's District 22 now. They've been remapped into District 22, both Peter Arianis and Dan Franzese. Yeah. And, you know, this is the first time in my 30 years down here that I can actually say that I'm excited about supporting, you know, congressional Republican candidates. I mean, Peter and Dan are two unbelievable people. They are great conservative patriots. Either one of them would be an honest voice representing the people. And so, yeah, you should have them both on as many times as possible. Get the word out there, because we need one of those guys taking down Lois Frankel and going to Washington. We got great candidates down here, school board, everything. We have great candidates. Well,
you passed the word that if they want to come on the Espenlaub, couldn't even say my own name right. On the Espenlaub show, you just tell them, come on. All right,
I'm going to set you up with a lot of people then.
Well, then you do that. We'll get them on here, and
all right.
We'll have fun doing it. So that's what it's all about. We'll feature them. And
sounds great. I'm sure they would love it.
Ed and I we're just the side jokes around here. But anyhow, the guest is the most important. And wow, we got to get out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very, very much. A great response tonight. Congratulations to the book winners. I'll get to read that book too. Anyhow, congratulations.
I'll send you one, George. Just give me your address. I'll send you one.
All righty. Listen, congratulations to the book winners. Thank you for your fine participation tonight. Now, do me a favor, spread this thing, share it, because that's when the magic starts. After we get off the air and people continue to watch. So share it out there with your family and friends, co-workers, so on and so forth. And we will be so thankful that you did this. Now, listen, whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, we'll be back Monday night, and we're going to have Andrew Columbia back on again. So we'll put more information out there. In the meantime, kind one to another, and don't be afraid to look somebody in the eye and say, I love you. It could save a life. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.